Hi guys, welcome to the Kung Fu Report. We're talking about classical Kung Fu's application. Today we're going to talk about the low bong zao, which to me is really important because like the great Bruce Lee said, most martial artists knows counters against low line attacks, but for some reason they like to neglect it in their training because most people headhunt. That's actually a risk. So today we're going to talk about how to enhance the low bong zao power, but first I'm going to show you the application when we get back. Christopher, please come on in. All right, so low bong zao, there's many ways to use it. I'll give you a couple of ideas on this side. The reason why you do the low bong zao is for some reason your hand's down. You're not ready, you got cut off surprise, or more importantly, maybe you're checking a leg, the guy's kicking you, and now your arms are low. So in that second level of Wing Chun, the Chum we talk about the bong zao, the throwing bong zao, right? One of the ways you can use it is against a low line strike, which Chris hits. So let's go slow. You can either do it by moving off line and hitting, or if you don't have time, you have to throw it out and move the guy's arm. Now you've got his arm. Or you can have his arm another way. From here, you take his arm. Or you can go high line and you start hitting. But you notice when people hit low, their heads are moving. Nobody hit with their head completely straight unless it's like a movie, right? Because his head's moving, when it's coming in like this, I'm going to miss with this shot. That's why sensitivity is important, that after we go here, this is actually tracing up his arm, so I can't miss. So those are some of the elements, right? It can also be used against a kick. If Chris kick, come here. Sorry, but let's go slow, wide. Chris fell down. When you bong zao like this, his leg's in the air. If right before his leg actually touches the ground and I sweep his leg, he falls. So when it kicks, you're not planning this, but it's thanks. And that comes from the BG form in the sweeping movement. It's not the sweep that throw him, it's the timing, right? When we get back, I'm going to give you a couple of tips how to increase the power off the bong zao. Thank you. All right, guys. There's many ways to increase the power of the low bong zao. But due to time restraint, I think I'm just going to instead give you a bunch of tips of what you should not do based on common mistakes. When people do the low bong zao on the wind dummy, because it makes noise, people want to get a lot of power, sometimes, a lot of times, they start swinging with their shoulder joints. So they start doing this. When you swing like that, it's not smart, because if the dummy's arm wasn't there, as a human arm moves, unlike the wind dummy, therefore you actually end up doing this and opening up your rib and your head. You're overturning, right? Second thing is, a lot of times the opening is wrong. Because if you look at Chum Q, the hands are held like this for a reason. Before the throwing bong zao, the low bong zao, it's not done flexing the elbow joint. Reason is, if you have your elbow straight, then when you throw the bong zao, you end up pulling with your bicep, kind of like doing this in the gym. That's way less power than if you had the arm properly in Chum Q, where there's already an oval, causing you to rotate instead of lift with your bicep. So now there's more body unity, right? And then the next thing is, when you do the low bong zao, the elbow must be pointing towards the center line, ignoring this part. That's the reason why the wrist is bent in the first place, because it is Fok Zao theory. When you do Fok Zao in the Silim Tao, the wrist is bent in Hong Kong Wing Chun to signify all this is turned off. So you don't use the muscle of your arm, which will cause you to end up flexing your elbow. Instead, you bend your wrist, relax, and point the bone towards the center line. If you don't do that and you overfold your elbow to redirect, which is a common mistake, you give the guy your elbow. And once the guy pinned your elbow, the fight's pretty much over. Because once someone took your elbow and uproot you like this, you can't punch or kick, you're off balance, they were just giving him a free shot, right? There are ways to get out of it, but you're taking a huge risk, especially if he's not a striker. If he pins your elbow and he starts going for a double leg, you just set him up for a suplex. So when you play the dummy, instead of trying to make noise and feel good, and like to try to get power, it's better to do it properly with your wrist here, rotating and not swinging with the shoulder. And also the third thing, to point your elbow at the right place. And then also turn on your Wu Sao so they move together, as you already learned in Chum Q. They move together. So when you're actually moving, this moves together. But my arm doesn't move. It doesn't overcompensate, right? So these are some of the things you want to avoid. All right, guys, see you next episode. Train hard and stay safe.